Most people have a very clear idea of what your average Amazonian looks like. Small groups, more or less one with nature. What I have occasionally, perhaps impolitely called Stone Age savages frozen at the dawn of time. An imagery that somehow Amazonian people represent our contemporary ancestors. They're people like us 10,000 years ago, as if they have no history.
With no traces of civilization in the central Amazon, and a compelling scientific reason for their absence, it seemed clear that Orellana must have been a liar. El Dorado could never have existed. But this traditional view of the Amazon has recently been challenged. 1,000 miles from where Orellana once traveled, on the fringes of the rainforest, lie the Mojos Plains of Bolivia. What was discovered in this remote place would begin a revolution in our understanding of the prehistoric Amazon. Among those to make these discoveries was Clark Erickson, an unusual kind of archaeologist.
I don't dig holes in the ground. I study landscapes. We drive over landscapes, fly over them, and walk over them.
Erickson has spent more than 10 years studying the Mojos Plains. It's a very different environment from the central Amazon, but just as harsh. The landscape here is dominated not by rainforest, but by open grassland, known as savanna. In the rainy season, the savanna is flooded by several feet of water. In the summer, it's dry as tinder. It makes it difficult to grow crops, and hardly anyone lives here today. But then archaeologists noticed something odd about this landscape. The savanna is crisscrossed by unnatural-looking straight lines, and covered by mysterious, striped patterns. There are also thousands of strange, isolated mounds covered in forest.
A major feature on these savannas are forest islands. The locals call them islas, and there are probably 5, maybe 10,000 of these in this part of the Amazon.
Erickson decided to take a closer look at these forest islands, and inside every one he found the same thing: signs of human habitation.
I have big debates with my natural science colleagues about the formation of these islands. They think they're natural, but I can come out here and usually within 5 minutes or so I can find a handful of pottery or charcoal or food remains or human bone that indicate that people were here. For instance, here's a fragment of probably a very large vessel. By the curvature here, it was probably some kind of a large cooking urn. Typical domestic ware you'd find on sites like this where people live.
It looked to Erickson as if the thousands of forest islands were in fact man-made prehistoric settlements. But what kind of society had built them? Then Erickson's colleague, William Ballet, took him to a site he'd found within an area of dense jungle. Hidden beneath the trees was a huge earthen mound.
I remember the first time we came out here, and we had no idea how big this was, and it wasn't until the 3rd or 4th day where we got the data off the computer, and we could see that it was 18 meters tall. This is the highest mound in the whole area.
Look, on that palm, we still have the tree tag. That's
The mound was full of ancient pottery.
Patterns on the plot as well.
Well, it's almost half pottery, half soil. So this is the highest part of the mound, and the quantity of pottery is just incredible here.
Look at this.
What was striking was the size of many of the
Many of
vessels.
the trees around here.
Look at the size of this thing. What were they incising on the inside?
Yeah,
of
this
the
is
pot?
this is a large vessel, probably about a meter and a half, maybe 2 meters across by the diameter of the rim here, and then the grooves are placed inside when the clay is still wet. And they use this as a big grinding platform because there's no stone out here.
Oh, okay. So that would have been
Vessels
for
this
grinding.
large
Manioc.
suggested this was no temporary encampment.
We're talking about permanent settled people here. You don't carry these around in your back when you're trekking or doing hunting and gathering. These are village folk, and a lot of these were probably for cooking up not family meals, but cooking up meals for huge groups of people. We're talking maybe parties for thousands of people. So I think that that indicates that there's something going on beyond autonomous villages in this area. We also have some mounds, such as this one, that's much larger, much taller than most of the other mounds, which could be some kind of ceremonial center or possibly a political capital.
That was where you had your tripod. That's very top.
It was a revolutionary thought. Hidden beneath these trees, Ericsson had found a huge prehistoric settlement and evidence that thousands of people had once gathered here for great ceremonies. These were the characteristics of civilization. The first clues to what this society might have looked like came from another nearby mound called Iviato. Iviato is still inhabited by an indigenous Indian tribe, the Siriono.
As an archaeologist, this is an incredible place because here we have an archaeological site that's probably occupied 1,000, maybe 3,000 years. We still have people living on it, and the Siriono have been living here for quite a while, and you get a sense of what this mound might have been like in the past.
Iviato still retains its original terraced structure, with 3 different levels still visible.
It's a 4 to 5 meter tall mound. Its base is probably about maybe 8 hectares or so in size. Typical, you have the original surface, and you come up a slight rise to a first platform here, which is very badly eroded, and then you come up farther to the second platform that we're standing on now. And this would have been probably where most of the houses were located, many more than exist here today.
Ericsson believes that 1,000 years ago, the main platform of the mound would have been occupied by hundreds of houses, and above them, on the top tier, the focus of the community, a sacred pyramid.
A very characteristic on these mounds is that usually not in the center, but at one side of the flat second terrace or third terrace is a pyramid-like structure of earth. And today you see that the Siriono church is on the top of here, but we assume that in the past there probably was a temple on top or some kind of priest's house.
Here was compelling evidence that there had once been large permanent settlements where today only a few people live. But that didn't seem to make sense. Large settlements meant intensive agriculture, something that was supposed to be impossible.